Hi guys, what's up? Today we're going to be going over part 2 of a little versus video between Ares and Bellona with good old Desi.
Military side of it. Now we gotta go on. Now we're gonna move on to the Smite side. Smite lore, Smite equipment, and powers.
Well, Ares loses some of his weaknesses from the previous fights because he's fully clad in armor.
Okay. I also forgot to mention. Are we gonna be using items or just level 20 all abilities at max level?
That might not necessarily come into play as much as it's literally them as they'd be presented in terms of the story. So, like, you remember those shorts that Hyres did? Like, Fall of War during the Odyssey?
Yes, for the Odyssey.
So
I'm just gonna assume level 20 all abilities at max level.
yeah, they'd have access to those things. Because,
yeah, let's just assume that because that's close as we got.
yeah.
I don't think we're gonna take any in-game modes into a 1v1 fight like this.
We just assume that it's as even as possible. The terrain wouldn't necessarily give either of them an advantage. So, I mean, as I was saying, Ares has armor, so that's not just an advantage because it reduces the chances that he would scream in pain or anything like that, but also makes him very difficult for Bellona to damage. I think the only way she'd be able to get any damage through his armor would be using her hammer, which is probably going to be very effective at that, especially because it's not a standard warhammer, a standard-sized warhammer by any means. The head is a lot bigger than what a normal type of warhammer should be. I mean, they are gods, so it's pretty hard to compare that sort of thing. But she's got enough strength to lift this massive warhammer and swing it around so quickly, so she definitely should be able to dent or damage Ares through his armor. But then there's also the second disadvantage being that Ares can fairly easily keep her at a distance by using his chains, and his shield in and of itself also has a flamethrower built into it, so there's that. I mean, yeah, he can even just prevent her from getting too close. Of course, he also kind of seems like he's got a better deal of control about his sort of bloodlust. Like, I'm sure he does enjoy killing and all of that, but in the comics and the shorts, he doesn't seem like a crazy sort of, like his one goal is to cause mountains upon mountains or streams of blood everywhere. Instead, it's more that he knows exactly what he's doing and he's able to just more sort of calmly, well, defeat whatever enemies he's facing. Even if he does get a bit cocky, like he did against Athena, it still seemed like he was more in control of himself and less of a mad dog. So yeah, I think Ares definitely has more advantages than Bellona does.
I guess I can agree with you there on the armor, in that Bellona has some pretty downsides for revealing armor per se. I think Ares would exploit that. But overall, I think Bellona will win this because she has more damage. She has more versatility with her kit, and plus she has her 3, which she can't sustain with.
The thing is that it can't actually damage him through it's a whip, and that's not going to do too much to a fully armored Ares. And then her sword really isn't going to be too useful. I mean, you could argue that the flag might do something, but other than that, I mean, and perhaps maybe the shield, because I don't think that Bellona would be able to disarm Ares.
I mean, if it's good enough to go through solid rock, which I guess is the terrain of, which to be fair, it goes through pretty much everything if it's a solid surface on the ground in the game. So I'm going to assume that the flag is strong enough to pierce through Ares' armor and just go straight through him.
I mean, there's also the fact that it's pretty obvious that she's using it, right? Like, is Ares really she jumps fairly high into the air and then slams down. Is Ares really going to let her land the flag like that?
Unless Ares is put into a position where she can do that, I don't think Ares would allow it. Unless Ares is weakened to the point where he can barely get up, I think Bellona would try and pull that off. But in any other circumstances, I don't think Bellona would be able to pull it off, and Ares would be able to counter it somehow.
Plus, there's also the chains that would just restrict her movement.
Yes, and I do think that cripples her 1 and maybe her ultimate. I think so. I haven't played Bellona in a long time.
It definitely, yeah. It cripples both of those, her 1 and her ult, so she's just left with her 2, and her 3 in that case.
I think her 2 would definitely make Ares think about trying getting too close, considering how much damage it does. But also, Bellona has her 3, which she can use to disarm Ares.
Again, I don't think he'd be... I mean, the thing is, I don't think that would actually work on Ares. There's a chance that he could be overconfident. If he was overconfident against his sister, there's no reason to think he wouldn't be overconfident against Bellona, who would definitely have less status than Athena. But even still, I doubt that he'd lose his weapon to Bellona. I'm just not convinced that the disarm would disarm Ares. And even if she does disarm Ares, he still has a flamethrower in his shield and access to his chains. So, I mean, that's pure fire chains. I'm sure that would do significant damage to Bellona armor or not armor. I mean, was it?
Yeah, we're just gonna infer the lore, of course, and use because that's the only thing we got to reference.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I can agree with you with a fire and all, but
because I mean, like if
hard. I think Bellona would be smart enough, even though she does seem extremely overconfident in her abilities. I think she would be smart enough to know of Ares' flamethrower shield.
True.
It would cause her to get back, but I don't think it would be a complete counter to her aggressiveness. Because of course, Bellona has more versatility. Would have more versatility than Ares, since he's covered to toe with armor, and Bellona is more. Of course, she doesn't have a lot of armor, but she has a good amount of armor to where she can protect herself.
Yeah, she can. It's got more weak spots than Ares, but yeah, it will still function as good armor, and it allows her to move around a lot more.
And she does have that shield, which is bigger than Ares' is. I'm pretty sure she can block the fire.
Yeah, so if Ares manages to disable one of her arms or weapons by wrapping chains around them, then I think it's GG at that point. I mean, she might have more movement and arguably versatility. I'm not sure that she does have more versatility purely just because Ares can cancel out a lot of those options. Pretty much only has the flag, and even then she's restricted as to how she can actually use it, and then the hammer. I mean, Ares does have a few weak spots where his armor is not protecting certain parts of his body, like his fingers, and like the little slit in between his helmet. I'm sure the helmet is good enough to do the job. Like, Bellona would have to be super precise with tip of the flag or a point of her sword, assuming that the helmet's not good enough to defend against that. I mean, there's also the possibility that Ares is somehow able, like Bellona is somehow able to get Ares' helmet off. But then that also does remind us that Bellona herself isn't even wearing a helmet. So that's just a massive spot for Ares to try and target as well.
Of course, I don't think Bellona would actually allow Ares to do that.
No.
Priest is self-aware about the helmet thing, but unless Bellona is severely weakened, I don't think she'll allow a head blow from Ares.
Definitely not. But we also have to consider this fight would probably drag on for quite a while as well.
Oh yeah, it would definitely be a dragged out fight.
Which of course means that she's probably more susceptible. I mean, Ares being fully armored, that probably isn't the best. I would imagine that fighting for that long in armor probably takes a certain toll.
Definitely get exhausted long before Bellona does.
Yeah. Especially also because I would think that Bellona probably has the heaviest equipment, but in terms of just her standard gear, if we assume her standard gear to just be her sword and shield, versus Ares' shield definitely looks heavier than Bellona's. And his sword... Okay, I guess they more or less have the same sort of sword. Like, Ares is serrated, but...
Yeah, Ares is like serrated and Bellona's is pretty standard greatsword.
It's a funny thing, because like, I'm not sure what to call those swords, because it's like, are they great swords? Are they just like...
I just infer Dark Souls references. I just call them great swords.
Okay, fair enough. Alright, so, final decisions on the battle. Who do you think would win?
Mythologically, Ares does have the advantage over Bellona in a lot of regards, but in the Smite point of it, I think Bellona has the upper hand on Ares there.
Okay. Yeah, in terms of definitely, yeah, I still think I agree. I think Ares has the advantage as far as, you know, from the mythologies that they're from, Ares does have the advantages, I think. But in terms of when you compare their Smite versions, I think Ares has more advantages and he's more likely to win the fight. I mean, I suppose the only other thing that we haven't really considered is, I suppose, worshippers, but that's kind of hard to gauge, because...
because I don't think high-res is really acknowledged that.
I mean, well, there's also... Ares is probably one of, if not the strongest characters, I think, because by the end of the Fall of War stories, he's got tons of soldiers that most likely, worship him, honor him in that sort of way. So Ares is very freaking... And on top of that, he was able to take down so many gods. He took down Anubis, who, fair enough, Anubis wasn't really defending himself, but he took down Chuck. He takes down Anhur, and with his armies, he takes down Anhur's armies as well. Arguably also, I suppose credit for taking down Ganesh, assuming that Ganesh burns alive, is probably Izanami, but still, I think...
Yeah, I think Izanami would be more the conduit for that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Ares would benefit much from killing Ganesh. That's only if Ganesh refused to give him Anubis.
Which, I mean, I suppose they kind of sort of did, and then the temple burnt. I mean, yeah, so there's that. So he's got all of those kills under his belt. But then also, there's Bellona being sort of touted as the hero character that's fending off Chernobog. So it's either that Bellona isn't affected, her power isn't affected by worshippers, or that she has a decent supply of worshippers enough so that she could challenge Chernobog. I'd like to imagine that Chernobog is a character who's probably not affected by worshippers. I guess it's just easiest if we just ignore the worship, like how many worshippers each character would have and who would have the advantage. Yeah, so yeah, I think Ares probably takes the Smite fight.
Alright, so...
I'm gonna quickly end off things here. There will be a part 3, so don't worry. Go ahead and check out this link for all of Desi's jazz in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like, and of course, as always, subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. Till the next video, have a very good day. I have been Prime, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.